Mercy and truth. Everyone say mercy and truth. Have met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed. You may be seated there. Man, this is so fun. So, what was last week? Thank you. Okay. Only one guy knew that it was Easter Sunday last week. And what do we celebrate Easter Sunday? Only one. Okay, no, I know you all know that. Only one. We just celebrated the resurrection. And then what about the week before that? What did we celebrate? Good Friday was 3 days before. We got Palm Sunday, right? His triumphant entry. Right? So I preached about Jesus' triumphal entry. Dad preached about Jesus' resurrection. And now, this is so fun. What we're going to talk about tonight, can I teach a little bit tonight? Can we dive into God's Word? But what we're talking about tonight is the continuity of God. This is one of the things that makes our God different than all other religions. This is one of the things that proves that He is the one true God. One of the things that proves that Jesus had to go to the cross. Okay? And we're talking about this after His resurrection. This is what He did. We're talking more about the amazing work that Jesus did. Okay? And this is so cool. It's called the intersection of salvation. The intersection of salvation. Okay? So, Haley and I, we just celebrated my birthday, and she took me out to Maggiano's. So I enjoy good Italian food. And our waiter, he made me laugh because he is a heavier set Italian guy and just kind of reeked of cigarette smoke. And I'm like, man, this is so authentic. I love it. I love it. Man, the bread, amazing, right? Lasagna, amazing. Pasta, I've gained so much weight this week. So actually, I got to tell on myself. This is a little funny here. So I was given this suit by a good friend, and I tried to put on the pants, and they are very tight. That's why I was able to hit those high notes up here. Okay? But while we're at Maggiano's, we had a great dinner, and we're on our way home. And how many know it's very fun to drive downtown? Okay? We're driving up 17th Street, and we come to Broadway. Does anyone know this intersection? Phil, you live downtown. There is like 6 different roads that connect at this intersection, all at different angles. You got Broadway, you got 17th Street, then 17th veers this way, and you have some other weird road. Can you put up that picture, Leah? That's the intersection, okay? So Haley was distracting me with her beauty. And we were driving up that arrow that's pointing up, that 17th Street. We were driving up there. And the cars next to us were all stopped. And even though it was a green light, I figured, well, they're going to go to the left. So I kept going, and we almost T-boned a police officer. Haley was not impressed. All my work of being flirty and trying to be gentlemanlike came to a crashing end at that moment. The whole night was for nothing, okay? I almost T-boned our brand new Nissan Rogue with our whole family inside, and everyone else was stopped. She's looking at me like, we've always aimed to not be like everyone else, right? So, but that was a very, very complicated intersection. Okay? And what we're talking about now is we're going to talk about the complicated intersection of God. So I'm having fun here. Okay, so Psalms 85, verse 10, we just read that. Do you mind putting that up again, Leah? Mercy. Everyone say mercy. That is one of the roads. Truth. Everyone say truth. That is another one of the roads. Righteousness is another one of the roads, and peace is another one of the roads. They're all attributes and things that God operates in, but a lot of times, most of the time, they conflict with each other. Okay? So mercy, in the Greek, hesed, it means kindness and faithfulness. Those are two rendings for that word mercy, is kindness and faithfulness. So, and then truth, the Greek word ameth, means firmness and faithfulness. So you notice they both are faithful. Truth is faithful and mercy is faithful. Okay? I remember my dad. I was a young boy, and I remember I got really convicted about a sin I did, and I confessed it to him. And how many know that my dad just beat me up and said, "I never want to see you again, you ultimate failure"? No, that is not what he did. He said, "Son, I am proud of you. Thank you for telling me." We prayed, God forgave me, and we moved on. Man, I'm so blessed to have a dad that did that. That helped me a lot in my life, overcoming different things, teenage boys get into and stuff like that. But everyone say mercy. That's the kindness. That's the kind side of faithfulness. So, and there was another time in my life, I was a little boy, a little older than Kai, right? Quite a bit older than him. I was learning how to rebel. How many know that's a fun age there? And we were at my elementary school. They put on this carnival. Hot dogs, rides, right? It was a fundraiser like that. And I had asked my dad for a burger. He got me a burger. I asked my dad for a second burger. He said, "No, we have dinner at home." So I took off running. Has anyone else done this? No, it's just me. I was Phil was a perfect child, never did anything wrong. I was upset about not getting a burger, so I took off running. And there's a crowd of about 200 people. And I go over to the playground, and I just kind of sit on the step there and pout. My dad didn't give me my burger. I'm really upset, and I'm just kind of staring at the sky. I'm like, you know what? Dad will come find me, and everything will be all right. He'll give me my burger then. And I waited there quite a while. The sun had moved positions. And all of a sudden, I see my dad, and he is not coming over with a smile. He had been looking for me for an hour in that crowd. And he picked me up and took me to the bathroom and actually grabbed my shirt and picked me up and put me on the wall. He said, "Don't you ever do that again." How many know there's a firm side of faithfulness? You have a merciful, kind side of faithfulness, and you have a firm side of faithfulness. It's all faithful, but it's mercy and truth. Okay? So I'll just give you, and the reason that we're talking about this is we have an outreach coming up, but I want us to be faithful stewards. Study to show yourself approved. I want you guys to know how to talk about God to unsaved people. And we can always keep growing in that. But Einstein said if you can't explain something simply, you haven't studied it enough. Okay? And I had a great conversation with a Muslim friend of mine at school, at college. And we started talking about it. And we got talking, and I'm like, I was trying to tell him about God and how Jesus went to the cross and how he can forgive his sin. And he said, "Well, we have our own way of forgiving sin." And I said, "What is that?" He said, "Well, we do the sin, And then what we do is we go to our religious leader and we confess our sin and he absolves us. Does that sound like any other group to you? Catholic. Really, there's a very similar Islam and Catholicism, very similar, full of violence in history. But there's this mentality that I can go to the religious leader, confess, and he'll forgive me. And I said, wait a minute, my pal. What happened to the sin? Let's say you stole my car, you go to your religious leader and apologize, and all is forgiven. You still have the car. I was still hurt. I missed jury duty, so now I'm going to jail because you had my car. No, we're spinning the story there a little bit. So what happens to the sin? Really, if you're talking to your friends or people that you know in your family that are unsaved, we talk in naturally understood truths. We're having a little fun here, okay? Can we talk theology for a minute? Our mind, our conscience, has natural truths that it understands. And one of those is mercy, and the other is justice. I told my friend, don't you believe that it's just that if you do the crime, you pay the time? Isn't that what justice says? You stole my car, so now you have to go to jail, or whatever the punishment is. You did the crime, you have to pay the time. And see, the problem is with Allah, he's going down Truth Street. And then he pops over here to Merciful Street. There's no continuity. Man, I'm telling you why Jesus had to go to the cross, why he is the Son of God, why our Father is different than all the other gods out there, is because he is continuous. He is always truthful. He is always merciful. He is always righteous. And he is always giving peace. Okay? Can you put up that picture, Leah, of the cross street? This is what God did. Oh, the other one, you had it right. You have Peace Street, Mercy Street, Righteousness Street, and Truth Street. Justice, truth, says, I cannot excuse your sin. Like my dad, the firm side of faithfulness says, I can't excuse what happened here. How many are glad that God is truthful? How many are glad that God is just? Man, we went to Atlanta, and guess what we found out? It's one of the capitals in the world for sex trafficking. The Bible Belt has got a little loose. It needs revival again, amen? We need to see God move in power. Oh, we have a nice religion, but on the inside, it's like whitewashed tombs. Nice on the outside, we got the big old church building, but inside it's dead man's bones. How many are glad that God is going to right every wrong one day? Every murderer, every thief, every sex trafficker will have to stand before the justice seat of God. Man, us as people that love God, that should bring us joy. We want them to get saved, but ultimately there's joy that, God, you're going to right every wrong. We put our faith in that, Lord. And how many are glad that our God is merciful? Mercy says, I want to forgive your sin. Truth says, I cannot excuse your sin. You can see where those two would very rarely cross. Truth said, you did wrong, you must have justice. Mercy says, I want to absolve you. See, Allah, even other gods, they're hopping. They're hopping from here to here, to here. I love our God because He's logical. He gave us our minds so parts of His character actually make sense to us. I disagree with the Calvinists that say we can't understand anything about God. We can never understand everything about God, but we can sure understand what He's telling us. He's given us a mind, and He has revealed stuff to us by His Spirit and His Word. So we're responsible to know those things about Him. We're responsible to understand Him, those parts that He reveals. And now look at this. Righteousness, everyone say righteousness, almost always demands conflict. I'll just let that sit there. A lot of people in church say, I'm going to be righteous, and I'm not going to cause any waves. I'm nice and holy, and I'm sitting in my pew, and I'm not going to cause any waves. Let me tell you a little story about a person in the Bible that God said is righteous. Has anyone heard of the name Phineas? Have you ever seen the show Phineas and Ferb? That's not what we're talking about, okay? I just grew up with that show. There's a man named Phineas. And what happened is in the Old Testament, the Israelites began to mingle with other cultures that had idols, cultures that were doing horrible, evil things in the sight of God. And Phineas was moved, and guess what he did? Hey, brother, I mean, you know, you're doing wrong, but God really loves you and has a plan for you. He grabbed a spear and stabbed a couple that were doing this. Everyone say, Phineas, what are you doing, man? God said, you are righteous, and I'm going to bless all of Israel because of what Phineas did. Righteousness is the passion and love for what is right. How many know that God is righteous? He's passionate for what is right. He's passionate for what is benevolent and clean and pure. And righteousness almost always demands conflict. And then look at this. Peace is the absence of conflict. Peace means Chris and I we're simpatico, man. There's nothing wrong in this relationship. I'm at peace with Chris. Right? If the U.S. is at peace with Canada, that means we have no conflict. We have no war going. This is one of the most powerful verses in the Bible. If you guys can listen to me and just open your heart, it says that righteousness and peace kiss. It says that mercy and truth have met together. These two would never meet together unless it was for Jesus. Oh, I was talking to my Muslim friend, and I said, what happens to your sin? And we finally just got it down to the fact that justice cannot excuse sin. You want to hop over to mercy and forget about the sin? God is always just. You say that Allah is just one day and He's merciful the other. I'm telling you, God is always just in everything that He does. That's why there's a hell. But God is always merciful. That's why there's a plan of salvation. And you see, these two, they intersect. God has provided a way for mercy and truth to intersect. God has provided a way for righteousness and peace to kiss. And that is by giving His only Son. Now God can look at Jody and said, I have been completely truthful with Jody. I have not excused sin, but I have been completely merciful with Jody. I have forgiven you, and you are free to go. Now God can look at Sue and say that I have been completely righteous with Sue. Everything that required conflict has been dealt with by my son. But now I can give my peace to Sue because there's no more conflict between us. Thank you, Dad. This is stuff that makes me rejoice. Here's just a little tidbit for you guys. If you hear something new, a great test to determine if it's true or not is, does it give more glory to the cross or not? If you go into a church and hear some kind of teaching and it undermines what the cross did, it's probably not true. If you go into a church and they say you can be a sinner before the cross and you can be a sinner after the cross, it's not true. But if there's a teaching that lifts up the cross and lifts up what Jesus did, I can tell you it's true. Because this is the only way that God can constantly be righteous, truthful, merciful, and give peace, is by giving his son Jesus. I told this to my Muslim friend, you need to put your faith in Jesus because there is no other way. I'm telling you right now, there is no other intersection. You want to hop over to Peace and Mercy Street, but you're still in sin and you're still on Justice Street. The only way those two streets meet is by Jesus. Tonight, I just want all of us to love our God more. Really, what we're talking about tonight is how amazing our God is. He never changes. He never changes for one moment in his character. All the other gods of this world aren't continuous. They have like faults. They aren't pure through the test of time, and our God is. That's why he's the only living God. That's why he's the only hope. And can we read the next verses? If you and we meet God at that intersection of salvation, I want to look at the next couple verses here. Psalms 85:11. Truth, everyone say truth, shall spring up out of the earth. Righteousness shall look down from heaven. I just want to pause there at that verse for a second. How many know that there is no truth in our world? There's only one truth, and his name is Jesus, and everything else in this world is a lie. Everything else in this world will suck the life out of you. Everything else in this world is death unless it's connected with Jesus, the one truth. You and me meet Jesus at the intersection of salvation. All of a sudden, truth is springing up from the earth. And righteousness can look down. Oh, you know, this whole Psalms, this isn't about us personally. This is about God restoring his favor to a land. Please go home and read Psalms 85. The title of it is God Restores Favor to the Land. We want God's favor to come back to Denver and Arvada and Atlanta. The first step is meeting God at the intersection. And now, you and God has been merciful to us. He's been truthful with us. He's been righteous with us, and he's given us peace. Now, truth is springing up from the earth. And righteousness is looking down. The relationship is restored. from heaven to earth. Truth is springing up and righteousness is looking down. Let's go to the next verse. Yes, the Lord will give what is good, and our land will yield its increase. We're not talking about crops and rain, right? We're talking about God giving His Spirit. He gives what is good, and our land will yield its increase. Isn't that good, Chris? I want to see Arvada yield its increase. I want to see people coming out of homes in Arvada and weeping their way back to Jesus, and then He restores relationships with their family members. He restores marriages. He restores bank accounts. He restores health. It's called revival. But the first thing that's restored is our relationship with God. Our land will yield its increase. Everything, some people say that revival is not in the Bible. They have not read the Bible. Everything God does is to visit planet Earth and see His Spirit poured out. Truth is springing up, righteousness is looking down, and the Lord gives what is good. Lord God, that's what we want from You, is to give us what is good again. God, help us cry out for You more. Help us spring up truth. Help us spring up righteousness again so You can give us what is good. And our land will yield its increase. Leah, can you put up the last verse, please? Righteousness will go before God and shall make His footsteps our pathway. Did you guys ever do this? Like it's raining outside and it's muddy, and your dad stepped in the mud, and you're following him, and your foot is a lot smaller, and you step in those footsteps. Do you ever do that in the snow? Jody is saying no. Never did that. I guess that's just how my mind works. 5 boys, yeah. Her foot would be a little smaller than I imagine that. Well, I've done that, and I've done it to Haley, to be honest, and it's just because I didn't want to get my foot wet in the snow. I'm just like, right? Like I'm going in those same holes. But really, that's what God is saying is happening, is we're following His footsteps of righteousness. We met Him at the intersection. God has given us what is good, and now you and me in this world are stepping in Father God's footsteps. This is how God restores favor to our land.